Hi, good afternoon. It's Gene from the maverickstar Observatory. Guys, sometimes I wish it wasn't just so negative, the topics that we touch on. But they seem to get our attention, don't they? I mean, I'll be talking about coronavirus a little bit later on because you cannot help it, because everywhere I'm going these days, somebody's talking about coronavirus. The shopkeeper today talking about coronavirus. Popped into a pub today. I hadn't seen this guy for 15 years who owns this pub, and again, he's worried about his business, and they know what's coming as well, guys. In a couple of weeks, we're going to see what we've seen all around the world that has been infected, and then the numbers have increased, and then this behaviour patterns have taken place. So, we're going to talk about these things. But before we do, I want to say a huge thanks to a few people that, decided to step up to the mark and help this observatory do what we're trying to do. And that is get equipment out around the world so we can keep an eye on one of the biggest, I believe, long-term problems we face with this rare anomaly. As always, we focus on the magnetic pole reversal on this channel. But I've always talked about it, haven't I, guys? I've always said we live in a gauntlet, and in that gauntlet there are many obstacles that we have to avoid. And because of our technological advancement, we are travelling through that gauntlet every day at an increased pace. And it's only going to be a matter of time before we hit one of those and cascade into the others. And with the coronavirus, I think that is the case. Before we go into the coronavirus thing, guys, I know that you probably have your sources already for the topic of coronavirus. You might want to be interested in my take on these things. I wanted to talk about the jet streams right now, because not only are we faced with the problems that the virus is throwing up, we're also faced with, losing arable cropping land, which is important, first of all, for ourselves, because, if you go back to any of our ancestral cultural times, you'll know that when the food stopped hitting the cities dispersed. All the people in them cities just moved out of them. And, we're in a time where, we're losing everything. It seems, I really am worried. I am worried. I almost don't want to talk about it to some people, especially close friends and family, because they're going to think I'm just outright lunatic. I told them 2 weeks ago, a week ago, or just over a week ago, to take the opportunity now to stock up on at least 3 months of food, and thank God they did. All of them did, even despite a couple having a bit of anticipation about it or anxiety about it, because when somebody's saying to you, look, you need to stock up on food, because if you wait till 3 weeks time, and that's all it's going to be, I say 2 weeks from now, but 3 weeks back then when I was telling them, I said, if you wait till then, you'll probably be looking at on the shelves, the only things being left on there, window wiper blades and sponges, and there's not really much you can do as a meal with those. So here we are now, a week later. The panic buying has just begun in the UK, but strangely the things that they're taking off the shelves is toilet paper, hand sanitizer, things that they can sanitize things with, but I think it's much worse than that. We've shockingly just seen recent evidence that there is 2 strains of the coronavirus now. One has mutated, so it's at least mutated once, and we know it's affected now over 100,000. We know the death toll globally is at around about 2 to 3, maybe 4% of the people that have been infected. So we could say around about 4,000 people have died of that. So the death rate is about 3 to 4%, maybe, something like that. And it has spread in around about 2.5 months globally. It's going to affect us all, guys. We are all going to catch coronavirus. I would say about 93% of us are going to catch coronavirus at some point. And if you're aged 70 plus, I really, really feel for you. I really do. Because you're at the most vulnerable end of the spectrum of, probably losing your life as a result of it. And, how many of us know somebody in that age group, in that age range? This is going to kill millions. The common cold kills 600,000 people probably a year. And this is a lot worse. The rate at which it spreads is a lot worse. And, the thing about this is it's mutated once within 100,000 infections. There's 7 billion people on this planet. And we've got mutations yet to come. Trust me on that, guys. And really, really what worries me is, if you forward think a little bit, do a bit of forecasting into the future. If this continues to mutate every 100,000 people or every 200,000 people, let's say, we know it's mutated once already, so it's changed its strain. So if you had a vaccine for the first one, it won't be no good for the second one. But if it continues to mutate every 200,000 people, and there's 7 billion people on this planet, how long is it going to be before we reach something where it mutates into a lethal killer? And doesn't just affect the people in the age range of 70, but affects the people in the ranges a lot younger than that. Now, I have heard, and it's unconfirmed, that there has been at least 2 children die. And that could have been for a lot of reasons. It could have been that they had low immune systems because of other problems that they had. But nevertheless, what happens when it does mutate? And I guarantee, just looking at what we've seen so far, it's going to mutate about several times. And my concern, like I say, is just that it mutates into something that's going to be super lethal. Bubonic plague, or along those lines. And, if it does, with our modern day lives, it's going to wipe out a lot of people. Yeah, there's so much wrong with this, all of it. The way the governments around the world have handled it, the way China. People are praising China, but I don't think we should praise them, because they should have locked down China to stop the infection spreading outside of China. I don't give them any praise at all for the way they've handled this so far. They are going to be responsible for the mishandling of this. For half of the world's wealth lost. That's the predictions, not made by me, but made by the Bank of England this week. They said we could see half the world's wealth lost. What figures are they looking at, and what's where's their information coming from? If that's what they're putting out right now, you got our Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying don't panic, buy. We're working with the supermarkets to make sure that there's no shortfalls in things. And I know that some people, because I've been going on different websites as well, like you guys, and I've been doing a little bit of research. You can go into one shop and there is no signs of empty shelves at the moment. But you go into some other shops and they've been desolated of, I don't know why, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, wet wipes. The local shopkeeper, I live in a little village, and the nearest shop to me is 3 miles away, and he said to me, you know what, I said, just out of curiosity, when I was in there tonight, I said, noticed any panic buying yet? He couldn't believe it. He said, yeah, and he was only too eager to talk to me about it. He said, paracetamol are going I said, well, I couldn't figure out why people would want to take paracetamol as, a form of protection against this coronavirus. But apparently they've wiped him out several times this week of paracetamol, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, hand rubs, things like that. But they don't seem to be wiping him out of his food. Maybe they're getting it from cheaper sources, from supermarkets. He did tell me that Costco's, which is where a lot of the shops buy their products from to stock up, one of them, there were shelves empty and there was restrictions on buying. And what I'm saying to you guys is, if you didn't hear my warning last week, then maybe you should do this week. If you live in Canada, the United States, Australia, Europe, in these countries that haven't been locked down like Italy, then you need to go out there now and start doing some shopping for your family and stock up on a few things, because the obvious things that people are stocking up on, like pasta, is starting to see people buying it. The shops are empty, not completely empty of the stocks of these things, but these are the things that people are going to buy because they know it doesn't cost much. You can live on it if you have to, and that's the things that they're taking out of the shops right now. You can't touch money, because if you've been infected, or somebody's been infected and they've handled money and they've rubbed the face, or any of the saliva has gone onto that money, then that money is contaminated. It's probably going to be contaminated for several days. So if you handle the money and then you put your hands anywhere near your mouth, you rub your eyes or anything like that, you're going to catch coronavirus. You may not know this, but just having one of those nose and mouth masks is not going to protect you, because people are catching coronavirus through the virus coming into contact with their eyes. Don't know whether you was aware of that. What happens if it does mutate into something more seriously and becomes, a serious threat? And if you catch it, the chances are you are going to die of it. What then? We're not quite sure, and I don't want to worry people needlessly. We're not quite sure still to this day what wiped the dinosaurs out. But one possibility could be that it wasn't just a meteorite impact that sent a dust cloud up into the atmosphere that choked them. One possibility could be a virus. And nobody knows at this point whether, there will be any human beings on this planet in 5 years' time as a result of coronavirus mutating into something else. It isn't going to be, even if it doesn't mutate, which is highly unlikely, I say probably 90% unlikely it won't mutate. It will mutate. So 95% sure of that, it's going to mutate again. I predict it's going to mutate probably in the next 6 months at least several times at the speed that I've seen it mutate already. Infecting 100,000 people, it's mutated once. So, we all know, don't we? With 7 billion people on this planet. So there's a chance it's going to mutate again, obviously. We don't have to be rocket scientists to work that out. There's 7 billion people on the planet. It mutated once in 100,000 people, so it's going to mutate probably again many times. It's just a matter of time before it mutates into something that is a serious threat to humanity. And I think the governments around the world are fully aware of this, and they're downplaying it massively. I mean, they're failing massively because they are protecting industries, and I can see why they would do that, at the end of the day. Without industries, the whole machine shuts down and it will end up looking like China, but China have done what they needed to do now in order to try and slow the process down. You're faced with two opportunities. You can't shut this down now, it's left the box, coronavirus or COVID-19 is out, and as well as it being out, it's got a brother with it, the mutation, that's out as well. So you can't put it back in the box once it's out. It's too late now. It has spread throughout the country. It's spread throughout the UK. If you look at it, I'll show you some UK government statistics just on the coronavirus in a minute. But it has spread already throughout the entire globe. Unless you live on Antarctica, you're not at threat. You will be at threat. So, there's been no containment whatsoever. They have been way too slow off the mark to try and slow this down. Way too slow. And the mishandling of this, is going to result in millions dying from this. And, we've got 2 weeks until you punch that clock and things start to happen. What am I saying by that? Well, we know that Jaguar Land Rover's got less than a week's worth of gear to keep the production line going. That's one of the biggest companies of car manufacturers in our country. And, you're probably living in the countries I mentioned earlier, in Europe, the United States, South America, and Canada, and all the other countries. And you've probably got companies that are dependent on China for the produce. And as long as China remains locked down, what you've got to realise is this has increased faster than exponential. You look at the chart, it's taking off and there's no slowing down, it's just accelerating and getting worse over time. So China haven't even reached equilibrium yet. They've got a lot worse to come. They've got many more cases of this virus that they've got to deal with, and they've got lots more deaths coming as a result of it because their numbers are higher than anywhere else. But we're starting to see people catch up with China where they were a week or two ago with the numbers, and you can only predict that what will be the result of that will mirror what China's got. So we're all ending up with a lockdown at some point, like Italy has just announced today. Excuse me. So my advice to you is not just to get some food, and you're going to think I'm crazy, but you know what, guys, I've done it myself. I've went and brought myself. I know what you're going to think. You're thinking, Gene, you're probably getting a little bit worked up over this, and I've already been accused by that by some family members. But I've brought myself an NBC suit and a proper, full-on military respirator for me and my partner for now, and hopefully I might be able to get those things for other people as well, who I know probably won't buy them themselves, but at least I'll try and get them if I can for them. But if I was you guys, I'd do the same, and I'd do it now because there's more people thinking along my lines, because the price of these things are starting to skyrocket, trust me. But if we get into the position where this is mutated into something completely lethal, then you're going to need it. There's no two ways about it. You're going to need it. You can't take any chances. You've got one life, and it's your job to look after your loved ones. So there's plenty of the stuff on the market. I would say now that the prices are increasing. If you're paying probably £50 for a respirator, a proper full-on carbon with filters and all that, if you're paying £50 now, you're probably going to be paying £600 next week when the panic starts, because people will buy it at that. And I know people are taking advantage right now on eBay and other places simply because they can. They're exploiting this. But you know what? There is a lot of other people out there that are thinking along the same lines. we can't take anything for granted with this. I would rather be over prepped. I've got my food in. I've got my NBC suit. I've got my gas mask or respirator. And I'm urging you guys to do the same thing, just as a precaution. And so what if you lose a couple of quid on a respirator that you didn't need to use? It's that insurance policy that you pay once and you've got it always as a backup for later. But if this mutates into something seriously deadly and you haven't got these things to protect you, then you're going to fall by the side like the rest of them. And we are so complacent in this day and age that we think that nothing is ever going to happen. We're going to just continue to go down this road, tickety-boo, go to work, come home, bit of family life, go to work, come home, a couple of holidays, maybe a year if we're lucky. Might be able to take them out a few times, once in a while for a meal or something like that. And it's life in general. We get old in the end, but we take it all for granted. We take a lot of things for granted. We don't really think about really what is important. Like I say, less than 3% of the population know about the magnetic pole shift and its implications, and why the climate has changed is mainly as a result of that. Most people aren't interested. They're just interested in when they switch on the telly, they watch the news, they get told the programme and they go with the programme, and then they're off to work. Eat their bacon and eggs, and they're going about the business as normal. It's traffic in the morning, traffic in the evening, come home, shower, something to eat, go to bed, done. It can all change. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to see the beginnings of it. It's like I say, you can punch the clock in 2 weeks' time, because it's all going to start to happen. If you're in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, Europe's already starting to see its first country fall victim to this, Italy. You're just not going to switch this off. There's no way you're going to turn it off, and the numbers are going to increase exponentially. They're going to be like they are today, over 200 today. Next week, mark my words, we'll be in the thousands in the UK, and we'll be implementing measures that we've saw in the other countries. So that's why I'm saying to you, go and get your shopping now. And while you can, get yourself some respirators, get yourself these. They're so cheap. You know what, guys, I've got to say, there are some sneaky gits out there that are really milking it. Because you could buy an NBC suit, a nuclear biological warfare suit, ex-military one, brand new in its wrapping, for about £5 12 months ago. And I know this because I used to use them as overalls. It's a cheap pair of overalls. You won't get a pair of overalls as good as them, but these things will protect you from biological warfare. And let's face it, let's call it what it is. We're at war with a biological weapon at the moment, or a biological virus. So, on the sides of this, let's just set this aside for a minute. We've got some muon detectors to go out, 2 muon detectors, 4 magnetometers. One's going to a friend of ours. They're going to take it to Bali for us when they next go. We've got 3 others, and we recently sent one out to Arizona. Scott, good friend of ours. In fact, all these people that have had these magnetometers have been champions for taking their time out to make sure we get what the data we need in order to understand what's going on with our Earth, with the highs and lows intensities of magnetic fields around different locations. And we're not doing too bad, guys. We really ain't. For the bucks we have to spend on the equipment and the time we have to invest in it, we're doing really well. And I want to continue doing that. I have got a little project on the side which I'm doing as well. which involves 10 local schools in Warwickshire, where I live, to try and get these younger generations involved in, the science of CO2, how it affects our atmosphere. So, guys, what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to get the kids to teach the adults what really is the case, because when adults say, oh, CO2 levels are rising and this, that and the other, and the kids go, well, we've done a test in the classroom today and the CO2 levels was at nearly 2,000, but when we went outside, there was only at 400 or thereabouts. So, which is a worse environment? Is it worse to be outside in that 400 parts per million? And, we'll design the books that they have to fill out a little bit intelligently, try and get them to understand that CO2 is important for plant life, and that if we drop CO2 levels down to a certain level, we'll end up destroying the earth as a result of that, and in turn ourselves. But if we increase the CO2 levels, as we can see from this satellite photo provided thankfully by NASA, we can see that the world can get greener. So, there is a little trick up my sleeve with this. So I'm not just giving out CO2 meters. I'm actually, fighting two things. First of all, trying to encourage, younger people to show an interest in science, and secondly, trying to uncover one of the biggest lies that we've been subject to in this millennia. With global warming being caused by CO2. And man putting CO2 into the atmosphere. So, it's a little bit of I'm being a little bit cunning, but you have to think of a way of changing the course of direction of, how people think. And I can't think of a better way than doing it like this. And if it's successful, hopefully we can take it nationally and then internationally, and we can really change the direction of the way in which this is going right now, because we know that some people are literally waxing their wallets filthy rich with CO2 taxes, and simply because the majority of the public don't know the truth or the facts. And most of us don't go out on a normal day and buy a CO2 meter and start taking readings, but I did that for you guys, and I also built that top end oxygen sensor using the latest state-of-the-art technology again to show you, just like the muon detectors. We're using the same equipment NASA are. We haven't got the budget they've got, but that means we have to put the equipment together ourselves to do it. So guys, I'll end the video here. I'll just say, we really need more people to step forward and support the Observatory. I just want to thank those that have already, but come on, we've got 31,000 subscribers. The more you help me, the more I can help us. Simple as that. And look at the times we're living in. Have we just seen the major downfall of humanity arrive in November? I'm talking about COVID-19, or commonly known as the coronavirus, and it's now its brother, the mutated version of it. So there you go. Okay guys, you have a good evening, and links are down there. Come on, step forward, stop being lazy, and step up to the mark with the rest of us. Start joining in and being part of a community. Links there, guys, and I'll say what I usually do. Bye for now.